Hey, this is Jason Balin from Hard Money Bankers and Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse. Today's topic is 5 steps to buying your first property. Ian and I both have some experience on purchasing properties, residential and commercial, along with financing properties, commercial and residential. So we are going to just dive right in and go through the 5 steps so you can buy your first property. Number one, determining what you want to buy.
Yeah, this is definitely the best step to take when you're trying to figure out what you want to do. It's always the first thing that you should probably do. It's debatable. There could be a couple other steps, but knowing what you want to buy. We've done everything from single family, multifamily, commercial, self storage. But what I can tell you is for us, what worked really, really well is figuring out that we wanted to buy single family residential real estate because we had multiple exit strategies, we had the wherewithal, and we had the ability to understand what our financial risk was. If we would have tried any other asset class, I don't know that we would have gotten the reps that we need. And more importantly, I don't know that we could have tolerated the financial risk that we were taking at that point of our lives to even be able to step out and do it. I believe that many people can do commercial real estate or single family real estate up front, but as we've outlined in this point here, knowing exactly what you want to buy up front will get you started way quicker than trying a bunch of different things a whole bunch of times.
Yeah, along with kind of keeping the end in mind, like what's your plan down the road? Like, do you want to have single family rental properties, uh, forever? Do you want to buy fix and flip so you can get a quick hit of fast cash? Do you want to spend a lot of heavy lifting and potentially buy a bigger commercial property where you can have a bigger exit, but you have potentially more risk? So really kind of determining what works best for you and understanding your resources and your capital position. If you don't have any money, chances are it's going to be challenging for you to buy a gigantic commercial property. You might have to start with wholesaling or buying a smaller fix and flip or a smaller rental property. So really kind of do a reality check on you to determine what's best for you moving forward. And that doesn't mean you can't change in the future. You start with what works best for you now, and then move on or increase asset classes in the future. Let's talk a little bit about finding the property.
Yeah, once you determine what asset class that you want to be in, there's many ways to find properties, and they actually are pretty relatable all across all asset classes. There'll be some sort of multiple listing service or some sort of commercial back end. That's one way to find deals. Finding off-market deals through marketing, texting, mailers, cold calls is another way to do it. But honestly, one of the best lead sources for us for finding deals is relationships, telling people exactly what we do, and people know that we are real estate investors, that we are looking for properties to buy, whether it's commercial or single family. And another one, and probably the next biggest lead source for us, has been following up. Deals don't always make it to the closing table. And when you see a deal, it's always worth giving a follow up call to that seller, to the broker, to the investor that was bringing you that deal, and find out what happened to that deal. The best money that we've made in a lot of our deals have been follow-up deals that have fell apart at the closing table.
If you ask any successful real estate investor how they find properties, their answer is going to be by every means possible. MLS, real estate agents, brokers, wholesalers, distressed sellers, bandit signs, direct mail, pay-per-click ads. It's all of the above. That being said, figure out what, again, back to what resources you have. Do you have time right now, or do you have money right now, or vice versa? You have to figure out kind of who you are and what's the best bet for you right now. If you have lots of money right now and not a lot of time, you might want to do some online digital stuff, direct mail, some direct to consumer, maybe hire bird dogs to help you find properties. And if you don't have much money but you have lots of time, great, that works as well. You can go down that direction. I'll tell you that the best bang for our buck was direct to homeowners, between door knocking, putting bandit signs out, doing some direct mail, kind of getting in front of folks, doing stuff and networking with wholesalers, and really just kind of going all in. The days of buying stuff just by looking on MLS are pretty much over. Not to say that there's not going to be an opportunity here and there, but you really got to treat this like a business and a marketing machine and go out there and find opportunities. So number three, how will you finance the deal? How will you finance your project?
Yeah, that is that is a very, very broad question. Financing your deal, there's multiple ways to do it. You can do it from everything of financing yourself with your own capital, right? That's the easiest and the quickest way to do deals, but not everybody's independently wealthy. So then what do? We look at all kinds of different ways to finance deals. We look at banks, we look at hard money lenders, we look at private investors. We look at the larger the deals get. Do we syndicate? Do we bring in partners? All of these have benefits, and all of these have downside. Just to give you a quick example, banks, while they might be a little bit harder to work with upfront, once you establish that relationship, that capital becomes easier and easier and easier. Now let's look at the other side of that, right? Because we have debt there, so it's almost a cheaper form of capital. Whereas if you bring in an equity partner and say, "Hey, Jason, do you want to buy this deal with me?" That is potentially the most expensive capital there is. While the relationship might be easier up front, Jason says, "Yeah, I know and trust and like you. Here's 100 grand to go do this deal." Well, if we really execute on that deal, that 100 grand might turn into 500 grand for him. Whereas at the bank, I only owe them $100,000, and then we get to keep all the upside. So another thing with financing it, those are a couple different options to financing it. The other thing that you want to think about, and I'm sure question number 5, because I don't get to see these up front, is that what's the exit, right? You need to fit your capital to your exit strategy. You don't want to take a 10-year money that on a deal that you're just going to go and flip, and you don't want 1 year money on a deal that you'll want to keep forever. So you need to find that happy medium of how to fit your capital into the deal that you're doing that makes financial sense, not only for the property, but for yourself and every other party that's involved.
Yeah, well said. And again, there's endless ways to finance properties. I think one or two things that you left out were potentially seller financing, which is a lot more common than one might think. And when capital is readily available, and things are selling and flying off the market, there might not be as much seller financing. But in our current economic climate, where capital is dried up a little bit, sellers are having a hard time selling their properties. As a real estate investor, you should definitely offer some sort of seller financed offer to them, and see where it goes, or even subject to, where you can take over their existing much cheaper debt than if you were to acquire it. But again, you got to be creative. Not no one real estate investment looks alike, and I think a lot of people want to structure deals the way they've used to and ways they've done so or learned about in the past. You really, really got to get creative and figure out what works best for you, and that has to do with financing. And you can't have a stigma related to the different finance types. And let me give you an example of this. I remember that I had spoken to somebody years ago, and the interest rate, that was quoted was a 13% interest rate. They're like, "What? Why would I ever pay a 13% interest rate? That's highway robbery. That's more than a credit card." But in essence, like, that gave them the ability to get high leverage on a project. Uh, by means that no one else was offering them capital. And keep in mind, if you're using capital for a short period of time, not that the interest rates are relevant. That's not a fair way to say it, but like a 13% interest rate that maybe a hard money lender quotes you compared to an 8% rate that maybe a bank quotes you, that 5% difference, right? That's 5% annualized, right? Over, let's say it's $100,000 loan. What's 5% of $100,000? That's $5,000 in a year. Let's say you only are fixing and flipping a house and you only need that for a few months. It might only cost $1,000 or $2,000, and that could be the difference between doing the deal and not doing the deal. So you got to get all of that stuff, all of that garbage out of your head and look at the numbers, because that's what it's all about, right? Let's say you're buying a really, really crappy deal and you're able to get really, really inexpensive money. It's still a crappy deal, right? You gotta. It's all about numbers and cents. Real estate investing is not a hobby. It is a business, and it's got to be treated like a business. All right, number 4, let's talk about execution.
Well, to me, this is the most important point out of all 5 points here. And you might say, well, Ian, you can't do a deal. You can't execute if you don't have a deal, and you can't execute if you don't have money, and you can't execute if you don't sell the deal. It's actually the complete opposite. If you don't execute on each one of these bullet points, you cannot do a successful deal. And execution is everything from your marketing plans to your acquisitions, work process, finding capital for deals, then actually doing the physical deal, right? Like going out there and operating it. It's one thing to see, feel, touch it, put it on a pro forma. It's another thing the day you buy that property. What are you doing with it? Are you getting it fixed in a timely manner to get it sold? Are you getting it fixed in a timely manner to get leased? Do you have leasing agents? Are you doing a large commercial project? Do you have everything lined up? Do you have all your permits in place? There's a lot of things that go into the execution phase. And this is where a lot of investors get tied up. This is where they say, oh, well, I got money. I'm just going to throw money at my problems. That's not the right thing to do. The best thing you can do is when you have problems and you're doing a deal is to be transparent with investors. Number one, if you have them, but number two, more importantly, is get out there and go lead by example, go get dirty, get the deal done. If you have a deal that's just sitting on the market and dying, it's costing you capital every single day. I'll give you a real life example. And this is more in the exit phase. But one time we were flipping a house and we had a mortgage broker said, don't worry about it. We'll just extend it by 2 weeks. What that he didn't realize was it cost us almost $200 a day to hold this property. And that guy was not executing on his end of the deal. And guess what? It cost us another $2,800. And I said to him, you still get paid the same. Our money is made by us doing deals and execution and getting it done in a timely manner. That's how we make money. And so when you're looking at execution, know that it's just more than finding and seeing and feeling and touching and getting deals across the closing table. It's also actually doing the deal and making sure that it gets completed in the way that you see fit. And that's where you're going to make the money. Having a good, smooth process all the way through this is what's going to make you a lot of money.
Yeah, execution's the difference between being profitable and losing your shirt on a deal. We've seen really bad real estate buys with really good executors that end up making the most out of that transaction they could have. It ended up being a bad deal. Maybe they acquired it too high, or on the back end, timing was off with the market, but they were able to execute. And by executing, they're able to make the most out of it. On the other side, we've seen some really good deals and opportunities with lousy execution, and they lose their shirts. And I'm talking, $100,000 in potential equity upside, and they lose it all because they can't execute. Their attention to detail is bad. They make bad financial decisions. They make bad construction decisions. They hire the wrong parties. They try to list it themselves instead of retaining a real estate agent. Execution's huge, and no better way than experience, diving in and also learning from others. So number 5 on the 5 steps to buying your first property is, what is your exit plan? In essence, like, what's your actual game plan, like your long-term plan with this asset you're purchasing?
Yeah, for us, we always wanted to make sure that we had multiple dispositions. And you might say, well, you said early on, know exactly what you want to do. But in the same sense, like, we knew exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to have multiple dispositions. If we buy a property to fix and flip it, could it be a rental and make financial sense? If it was a rental, could we fix and flip it? Could we wholesale it? Do we have other dispositions? Was there lots to subdivide? And that, what we found by doing single family real estate over and over and over again and looking at multiple exit strategies, that translated really, really, really well into the commercial space. Because when you get into the commercial space, you have a lot more bandwidth to do what you want. And right now we do a lot of self-storage and multifamily, and self-storage is really fun because we're looking at lots to subdivide off. Can we expand? Can we build more? How can we increase the revenue on these properties? Are we going to refinance them? Are we going to sell them off? What does the rate of return look like for our investors? So that exit strategy, well, you might say, oh man, I really just want a clear-cut definitive answer. Honestly, if you look at it and have multiple ways to get out of a deal, you're actually nimble to the market. And we're recording this at Q4 2023, just for a timestamp. Things are really weird right now. You need to be nimble to the market. You need to be willing to take a property that you were willing to keep and say, you know what, I can pick up 3 years on sale. Boom, let's do it. It's looking a little tight. All right, I'm going to rent it out for 2 years and then I'm going to sell it because it's going to cash flow as a rental. So for exit strategies, that's what we look at. How can we create more than one disposition and give us multiple ways to get out of a deal if we need to?
Yeah, I think an exit plan is super, super important. Obviously, you make money on a property when you purchase it, but you have to have a game plan in place. Now, ideally, you want to execute to your game plan uh, to whatever way you can. But again, like Ian said, you want to have some backup plans just in case, right? So if this is a property that you're planning to fix and flip, you're going to do improvements as if you were going to fix and flip it and sell it for a premium. Now, potentially, maybe you have to take that back and hold it as a rental property for a long period of time. Maybe you have to do some other creative structure. But the exit, too many real estate investors go into a project and they're just not sure. They think, oh, I'm getting this at a discount, so I'll figure it out, right? Maybe I'll sell it. Maybe I'll rent it. Maybe I'll live in it. I don't know. They don't have a game plan. Well, if you don't have a game plan, I mean, it's like not writing down your goals. You don't even know what direction you're going into it. You're going into this thing blind, and you can't go into any real estate transaction blind. So there you have it. Those are the 5 steps to buying your first property. If you enjoyed this video, we would certainly appreciate a thumbs up, a like, a share. And if you're a super nice and generous person, please give another real estate investor a chance to listen or watch this video as well. We certainly appreciate it. Until next time.